First of all, thank you for you choose to stay here. Why don't you cheer me up? Okay, I'm Scott here from 101 Junior High School of Taichung City, and my topic is learning styles and English teaching. And before I begin, I want to ask you some questions. Because I was not here last year, so I'm very curious that why do you choose to come today? Why? What do you want to know from today's presentation? Gentlemen, why? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Good, thank you. And lady? Okay. Okay, you want to see what we learn, right? Okay. Of course.
Yes. Someone are FT want to know how and the advantages and disadvantages about your trip to Australia.
Okay, maybe I'll talk later. Because I was not here last year, and I think when I was doing this project, I'm thinking, if I were here last year, what would I like to know from the speaker? If I were here, I want to know that if the speaker can solve my problems that I have faced during my teaching, right? So these are problems that I have faced during my teaching, and you may be very familiar with these. The first one is the individual differences of students' English ability. Yeah, especially in junior high school and the school in the city, that happens very much. Like some of the students may speak like a native speaker, or sometimes they really are. And some of the students cannot even spell ABC. So that's a really huge problem. And the second is the teacher-centered way of teaching. And in Taiwan, teachers talk too much. But English is a language we seldom let our students to speak or use this language. And I think it's a problem too. And the third, the environment of using language. In Taiwan, because English is a foreign language in Taiwan, it's not a second language. That means when they go out from school, they do not speak this language. So most of them only speak English in the classroom, but sometimes teachers didn't give them a lot of time or space to speak English. And that is my problems. And then last year, after I came back from Australia, and in Australia we visited many schools there. And from that school, we saw how Australia dealt with these problems. In Australia, for individual differences, their differentiation is totally comprehensive. They differentiate students in every ways, from textbook to the classes they took. The high achievement students could learn some advanced knowledge, and the low achievement students can get much more help from assistant teachers. But that is what we cannot do in Taiwan, because in Taiwan we cannot differentiate students. The government asks us to treat all the students equally, even they cannot catch up with others, right? So that's a problem. And the second, teacher-centered. Of course, in Australia they are more student-centered. The teachers in Australia, they allow students to share ideas with others, and they allow students to talk in class. So in their classroom, the voice you heard will be the student's voice. Seldom you will hear the teacher's voice, so that's very different too. And the third one is the environment. They allow students to make mistakes. That's very important, because in Taiwan, when students make mistakes, we will tell them, you got to make this right. But in Australia, sometimes I thought that the teachers love them to make mistakes. So this is the differences that I saw in Australia. And after I come back, I began to think, how I can use what I had learned, what I had saw in Australia to help my students. So I decided to use one thing that I learned in QUT, that is learning styles. Learning styles, there are three major learning styles among students, which are visual learners and auditory learners and kinesthetic learners. And visual learner, of course, they can learn more through seeing things. Auditory learners, they can learn more through listening things. And kinesthetic learners, of course, they can learn more through doing things by themselves. And I choose this topic because that I think some of the students in Taiwan cannot learn by themselves. They are used to getting the answer from the teachers. When you ask them to find out the answer, they don't know how to do it. I think maybe it is because that they don't know how to learn, they don't know their learning styles. What if he or she is a visual learner, but he kept listening to the teachers, but he or she never take notes? Then he or she is using the wrong way, and then he cannot make the best use of his learning. So that's really a shame. So I decided to use this to be my topic. And then here's my plan and the procedures. But first of all, I would identify students' learning styles. And then I am going to create a more student-centered way of classroom. So I decided to divide the whole lesson from the textbook into 4 parts. The 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And use different kind of activities to help students to learn more. And then in final, I will have an evaluation to see whether students really learn more from this kind of teaching. And my target students, because I want to make sure that this plan can be useful for all kinds of students, so I choose the low achievement students in my school. They are all 8th grader, and there are 29 of them. And the textbook I use is 90 version, book 4, book 3, lesson 4. Maybe some of you have taught this lesson before. And the other reason that I choose these students is because that most of them are refused to learn. If I use the traditional way of teaching, they just sleep. Or sometimes they really refuse to do anything. So I'm thinking that if I change my way of teaching, maybe they will be more open and try to find back the love of English or something, I don't know. So I want to change them, try. So here's my steps. The first step is that, of course, first one, I have to identify students' learning styles. And I will give them a questionnaire to let students know what their learning styles are. And of course, the questionnaire they got is the Chinese version. I translated it because the original one is in English. And they have to answer all the questions to know whether they are visual learner, auditory learner, or kinesthetic learners. And then when they know their learning styles, the results are that most of them are kinesthetic learners. Of course, without any surprise, because they think that if they can learn it through playing, then they can learn more, because they all like to play games. And then there are 8 visual learners, 5 auditory learners. And then I will divide the students into 5 groups. And each group should have at least 3 kinesthetic learners, 2 visual learners, and 1 auditory learners. So we got 3 kinds of learners in every group, so they can help each other. This is the first step. The second step that I'll tell you that I will divide the whole lesson into 4 parts. And the first part I will teach listening. And in this part of teaching, I will still use the textbook. So I will use the dialogue in the textbook to teach listening. And in this part of teaching, the auditory learners in every group should be the group leader in this part of teaching. And the job of a group leader is to organize the discussion. And to collect the information, and sometimes they have to share the ideas with the whole class. So the leader is very important. And as I said before, I want to create a more student-centered classroom, so I will give them a lot of questions to discuss. So the first, let students listen to the CD, the dialogue played by the CD. or 2 times without opening the textbook because I want to train their listening. And then in the beginning, I will give them a piece of paper, and while they are listening, I will tell them to write down anything they heard, including vocabularies, grammar patterns, or main ideas, anything they heard, just write down. Because they are low achievement students, so I allow them to write down in Chinese. Because my focus is on the listening part, so they can write down in Chinese, but they cannot speak anything, just write down. And then, after listening, each group should discuss what they have heard. So the group leader have to organize the discussion, and the group leader have to collect the information the group members have. And after their discussion, of course, they have to share the results of their discussion. And then, after the sharing, I will ask all the students to open the book and to check whether their discussion, whether their guessing is right or wrong. I do this because I want them to change the way they learned before. Before I do this, I always tell them what the answers are, but in this plan, I want them to find the answer by themselves. So it is a more student-centered way of teaching. And then I will explain the new words and the main ideas they find in the dialogue, so they will know what this dialogue is talking about. And if I still have any time left, I will read out the new words in the dialogue one by one, and the student have to circle them to check their understanding. I have to do one more time because my students are really low achievement students. So the tasks I ask them to do are really simple. Really simple. If I want to test them the vocabulary, oftentimes I will tell them to write down in Chinese, not the spelling, not the pronunciation, only the meaning of the word. Okay? This is the listening part. And the speaking part. In speaking part, I still use the dialogue as my target to teach. In this part, speaking, the kinesthetic learners in every group should be the group leader this time because speaking is kind of doing things. So I think they can be the leader. And in this part, because they have done the dialogue before, so I will not explain it again. So in this part, I will just read out loud the dialogue together, and then group by group, and do many times of oral practices. And after the practices, I will ask students to do some special moves when they say the phrases in the dialogue. Like the dialogue I taught is about someone had a bad dream. So when they say the phrase like in the dream, I mean ask them to do moves like this. And then when they say some another phrases like poor you, I will ask them to do poor you. Like this, some moves. They love that because when you ask them to make connection between the moves and the phrases, they really can know the meaning of it. They can learn more from it. So after the practices, I will give each student a role to play. It's a role play. And the student can practice the dialogue with their group member first because I will ask them, I will tell them that I will choose some of you to come out and act out the dialogue in front of others. So because most of students are really afraid of coming out, so they will really practice. But actually, I will only ask the group leaders to come out. But because they are low achievement students, so they cannot really act out the dialogue. So I only ask them to read out loud. At least they have practiced how to pronounce that word. So in this part, I only focus on speaking. So this is the speaking part. And the next part is this reading. In this part, I use the reading text in the textbook. And the visual learners in every group should be the group leader this time because reading is all about the eyes. So in this part of teaching, I am not emphasize the grammar patterns or the vocabularies. I want to teach them the reading strategies, the understandings of something. So before reading the text, I will give students the title of the reading. For example, the reading I taught in the lesson is about postcard. So I will ask them, what may you see from a postcard? Then students, they can answer in Chinese because this is the reading part. So they can answer in Chinese. They They would say maybe an address, maybe a cynic or something, or a name on it, a telephone number. They will say a lot of things, and I will write it down on the blackboard and will tell them that we will check your answer is right or wrong later. I won't do a lot of these kind of things. I will make them guess, and later they will check their guess is right or wrong. I want them to find the answer by themselves. So, and then after the guessing before the text, I will give them some pre-reading tests, pre-read questions, some easy questions like, what is the main idea of this article, or who wrote this postcard, or where this postcard sent to, all kinds of WH questions. And then they have to find out the answer quickly without reading it before. So they have to find out the answer very quickly, and during this process, they will learn how to skim and skip and find out the keywords. And also, they will know the main idea of this postcard. So this is the pre-reading questions. And then after the pre-reading questions, I will interpret the reading to the students and check whether the student guessing is right or wrong. Check later, guessing on the blackboard is right or wrong, and interpret the reading to them, because sometimes the reading is still too difficult for them. There are so many vocabularies, but I will not ask them to memorize all the words. For example, in this part of reading, there is a very, very important word called Black Friday. Black Friday. They don't know what Black Friday is, so I will explain the culture to them. What does Black Friday mean in America? So, in the end of this class, everyone in the class will know what Black Friday means in America. So, after I interpret the reading, then I will give them the post-reading questions to check their comprehension and the understanding of this article. So this is the reading part. This is just the procedure I teach the student. And the final part is the writing part. And again, my students are lower trim students, so they can only write some simple sentences and with many mistakes. So I'm not asking them to write a whole article. Actually, it's kind of guided writing, like this. I ask them to write a postcard, and they have to write from whom to whom, the dad, dear somebody, double tense is on, it's a time many people do something. I was doing something, I met someone, he was doing something, loved someone. Like this, very, very simple writing sheet. I give them this writing learning sheet and tell them what to do, tell them what to write down, and I will review the grammar patterns we have met before. So, and I will give them some instruction how to make some sentences. And while they are writing down the sentences, I'll ask them to use their imagination to create some interesting sentences. Because, this kind of students, lower trim students, they like funny sentences, and they love to make funny sentences. So they feel really happy in this part of teaching. And because I told them that I will collect your paper and I will choose some interesting sentences, and the one I choose could get some bonus. And I will share these funny stories with other classmates. They laugh a lot. This is the writing part. And after the reading, writing, listening, and speaking, I will do an easy evaluation. Because I have never done this before, I have used activities to motivate students before the class or in the end of the class, but I have never taught a whole lesson with different kinds of activities. So I don't know whether the students can really benefit from it. So I still use two kinds of tests. The first one is traditional paper-based test, like we did before, spelling test, multiple choice test, and sentence translation. And of course, students perform as bad as before. Sometimes I think it's not because they didn't learn anything. It is because that they refuse to write down the answer. they just don't want to do the test. I don't know why, but I asked them, they just said, when they saw the choice questions, they just want to guess. I don't know why. So I made another task for them. It's a task for comprehension. Like circle the meaning of the word, find out the main idea of short readings and guided writing. And they really performed a little bit better than before. And the task I made for them is very, very easy. See, circle the meaning of the word, like dream. Then dream. What does dream mean? I will give them something about sleep. It's very, very simple, very, very simple things. Then at least they are willing to answer the question. They will not guess. So I think they really learn something. But it's just, I will talk later because the type of exam is really made me very disappointed. And I got some feedback from students. Most low achievement students said that found it more interesting to learn English this way. Reasons are the activities are fun, of course, because they are playing. They like to play. And the second, I can talk to my classmates. They find it very, very weird because usually I don't allow my students to chat with others. I think you also do that, right? You don't allow students to talk with others in the classroom, but because I have to let them discuss. So they have to talk, but sometimes they are just, talking about something. It's not related to the lesson I teach. And third, I learned some useful skills like write a postcard, like to really speak a sentence that is they have never done before. Number 4, I don't have to remember so many things. They are really happy about this because they don't have to memorize the vocabularies. They don't have to memorize every word. They don't have to memorize the whole reading because I used to ask them to do so. So they are very happy about this. And number 5, I speak more English than before. In the past, before this plan, they only write the answers down. They don't have much time to speak English. It's very strange because they are having an English class. So these are the low achievement students thing, but those students whose English are above average don't think this way of teaching is effective. Reasons are, number 1, I can't concentrate because others are too noisy. This problem happens like the speaker in this morning, they mentioned this before, because the classroom is too noisy. Sometimes they are not really discuss the thing we want them to discuss. So those good students think, it's too noisy, I can concentrate. And number 2, only a few students speak up in the group discussion, and that is a problem too. Only those good students really contribute in the group. And some students just talk with others. And sometimes they don't even talk, they just sleep. And number 3, my grades are worse than before. That really hurts me. Yeah, why? Why? Because that I don't ask them to practice. So this is the same as number